Good evening. As you can see, want to welcome you guys first of all for joining us tonight. As you can see, we're a little bit unorthodox tonight because I believe we have a special show tonight, Beyond the Breaking Point, Rebuilding After Loss. Tonight, guests, you're going to hear some personal stories of sorrow, of grief, of triumph, and also of transition. And so I encourage everyone to join this conversation as tonight, the queens of Unfiltered Kings of the Queen podcast will have a candid conversation with our guest, Ann Smith. And so I just ask you guys to open up your mind, bring your questions, bring some intellect and thought to the table, and join us as we discuss Beyond the Breaking Point, Rebuilding After Loss.
Welcome back to Unfiltered Kings and the Queen podcast. Tonight's conversation is one filled with depth, courage, and humanity, and we want to set the tone properly. Before we dive in, let me check in with my co-host tonight, Jay, Ruth. How y'all doing tonight? Are we feeling grounded? Like, what's going on? Tell me how you doing tonight.
I'm feeling good. I'm ready for tonight. I'm feeling real good.
Awesome.
Excited to be here. Like I said, I'm interested in just hearing you ladies kind of have a conversation. I think we don't often, as men, get to hear the insights of. Mm-hmm. And I definitely want to welcome my guest, Ann Smith. We have a new face tonight, and so you guys will get to know her a little bit more, hopefully tonight. So I'm excited about this opportunity.
Okay, over to you, Ruth.
I want to introduce somebody. I met Ann a few years ago, and I don't want to call her, she's more like family to me, because to know Ann, anyone who know Ann is to love Ann. You don't meet a stranger when you meet her. And so I want to introduce to some and most of the people who know Ann, she's family. So I'm going to introduce my family, Miss Ann Smith, and she's going to share her story with us. So I just want to introduce Ann. Okay.
Welcome, Ann.
Hi.
Okay. Anything you want to say, Ann, before we get started?
No, I am excited about the opportunity of speaking on this because I just know that it's a hard conversation to have, and many people experience death and grief and don't necessarily know how to navigate through it, and it's tough.
Okay. All right. So just take us back. Just tell us a little bit initially about your loved ones. Let's start there. Let's take it. Just tell us a little bit about your loved ones.
Okay.
The initial story.
My loved ones. My husband, Mr. DJ Lonnie B. Smith. We were married in 2015. We had known each other probably most of our lives. We started dating in let's say 13, and we started having a conversation about marriage in 14, and we actually married in 15. So we were married a year and a half. We celebrated one anniversary, and then he transitioned in 2017. So that's part of my story. I knew that when it happened, I didn't know like how I was gonna get through it. I knew that I would, and I'd say that because based on past history, I've experienced some loss some major loss. And I think prior to Lonnie, one of the biggest loss I experienced was the loss of my dad. And so, I was a little girl at 12 and lost my dad. And I knew it took me from 12 years old until about late 30s for me to realize how much of an impact that made on my life. Like the decisions I made, the attention I was seeking. And so once Lonnie transitioned, time passed, I knew that it was so important for me to be careful and cautious with myself. I knew that I had to um, do whatever was necessary because I've experienced grief, but it was a different form of grief. Okay. A husband, you put your guards down, you meet someone, you fall in love, and then all of a sudden they're gone, right? So he transitioned in a boat accident. He went fishing. It was three guys, Lonnie, little Lonnie, and a friend of theirs. And Lonnie was the only one that did not make it. Lil Lonnie made it, Richard made it, and they made it because they actually took their clothes off and swam. It was a storm. So Lonnie transitioned as a result of the as a result of the fishing pole, like the wire or something, kind of like wrapped around his leg or something, and so he of course transitioned. And when I first heard it, I just was like, it was like a blah. The craziest thing was that night before, no, early that morning, we had all these plans, right? I think we got up about 5 and we talked a little bit, ate, he packed his lunch, and then we was like, okay, well, when you come back from fishing later on, we're gonna do this. And I had a hair appointment that day, like you just make all these different plans, and you never think that you do think that, sometimes they may not go the way you expect, but not in that way. And I want to say Lonnie he left home about a little after 7. And I think about 10 o'clock, I got a phone call. And the phone call was just like, what do you mean? I remember um, the phone call like it was yesterday. There was an incident and Lonnie didn't make it. And you know how sometimes somebody is like a superhero or somebody has so much strength that you just know that they made a mistake on this one. I just really knew. I was like, what do you mean? And he didn't make it. I'm like, no, he out there. You just can't find him. I know he's okay. And for them to tell me that the reason how they knew he wasn't okay, and when I heard the word corner, I was like, wow, like that's what made it real. Um, yeah, yeah. And so that was like a roller coaster. It was. I had so many confusing moments. Couldn't sleep for days. No appetite. Just confused. Um, yeah.
And in that moment, I know you named other people, right?
Hmm.
And sometimes it's hard, but you're human. And sometimes people don't realize that. But sometimes no matter where your faith is at, because some people always want to go back there. But in
Yeah.
the midst of you losing somebody that's near and dear to you, sometimes you put your faith on a shelf. And then those of you who are listening and watching, people say, oh, how can you say that? But you're human. And what I want to ask you in the grand scheme of that, because we all have been there, we all have lost somebody. I'm guilty of it too. But did you ever, in the midst of that, because you're human, did you ever say, God, why him? And why not somebody else that was in the boat with him? Why did you choose Lonnie? And why not somebody else?
Honestly, I don't think I thought like that. And I feel like that because Lonnie and I had a lot of conversations about a lot of different things. And sometimes you don't understand certain things until something happens.
Okay.
And I say that because, you know, so Lonnie was like 5 years older than me. And far as relationship wise, he was way more mature. And I say that because he was my first husband. I was his third wife. And when I say that, he was just a man's man, a family man, and he was family oriented. And so we always just had conversations about life, um, getting older, and just, he always talked to me about there are no coincidences. And so I think once it finally set in, I think my thought was not saying, did he know? It's just sometimes people have conversations with you and you don't understand it at the moment. And later on, it just makes you wonder, like, wow, wow. Did they, I'm not going to say sense something, but it just, I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. It just, I don't know.
Okay.
If I can say this, I think as I'm sitting here listening to the story, I think it's an interesting dynamic how those conversations prior to played a very significant role, even in not understanding those conversations that you guys had and that love that you guys built in some way help you understand the unexplainable, if you will.
It did. That is a
You,
great way. Yes, it did.
yeah.
Because I feel like had we not had some conversations, I don't know how my response would have been. It would have been, it may have been like completely losing it,
Mm.
like completely losing it. But I also feel like to a certain extent, he kind of prepared me. Um, and you had to have known Lonnie to be able to know what I mean by that because he was such a teacher and such a skilled man. He just always kind of like he always had the gift of teaching, and I just feel like to a certain extent he kind of not necessarily prepared me, but because of those conversations, I was just like, oh wow, hmm.
Mm,
So what would you say is what was the most physically or mentally debilitating experience from the grief, would you say?
Oh God. I remember now with the grief of Lonnie, I remember I went through different things, but these few times that I remember is like I would be okay at work or even outside of home. But when I came home, I would just break out. And I would wonder like I'm in the mirror kind of like maybe getting undressed or something, and I would look at myself and I'm like, what's going on? And so I had to start paying closer attention because I had no clue. But I feel like I narrowed it down to because I was so used to coming home to him that when I came home, reality just really set in, and I just broke out like, and I had to learn how to kind of like talk myself down and calm down and learn ways that would help me um, because people can see you and think you're okay, and not physically see any scars or anything, and you still smiling, because I still smile. Like I love smiling. So, but my smile changed.
Mm.
And if you knew me, you knew it was a noticeable change. Like it wasn't the glow, the light bulb was dim.
Okay. So let me ask you this. Um, Now we're talking about Lonnie. So a lot of people will say to you, they know how you feel. They know how you feel.
Yeah.
Tell me some of the things, or tell us some of the things that you wish that people wouldn't say to you. Some of the things that people will say that you feel like are inappropriate to say when you have lost a loved one.
You will be so amazed at what people say, the conversations that they want to have, and you really don't even have the strength to talk. Uh, it could be. So I remember, and I don't know if it was the day of the repast or we were trying to get things together. Somebody asked me something really simple about the food or some food or something, and I kind of like went off, and I was just like, I don't give a damn if nobody eats. Like, I don't care. Do you like really see what's going on? And I think I just had a lot of built up frustration, and that was at the moment where it just kind of like spilled over, um, because you kind of take what people say, and you kind of like, okay. But at that moment, I had took so much in, and I think at that moment, I just was like, I just let it go. Oh, you gonna be okay, or say for instance, what happened?
Mm.
I remember my brother telling me my brother cuts her, and later on we talked about it, and he was like, people coming up was like, man, what happened? And you have to know my brother. My brother is a jokester. He's a jokester, but he's real. Okay, straightforward. And he's like, what do you mean? What happened? And he was like, man, what happened to him? He said, what typically happens when somebody passed, they stop breathing. Because like people want a story and they want yeah, yeah.
Now, what was the smallest, most simple thing or thought, an activity, or a belief that first helped you pull yourself even slightly away um, from you starting to bring yourself back?
Okay. Repeat that for me again, Ruth.
Okay. What was the smallest or most simple thing or thought or an activity or belief that first helped you pull yourself or even slightly away from starting to bring yourself back to you, to starting to heal? And then I'm gonna go somewhere else with that.
Okay. So I think it was different processes. I can't remember one in particular. Um, for me, I have to take baby steps with myself, and I've just learned that about me. I can't become overwhelmed. I can't look at the whole picture. I just need to just find a little small part of it and then focus on that. And so I would think maybe listening to music definitely helped me. Um, being alone, and even in being alone, I found peace. It wasn't um, like a lonely. It was peace in that because there was so many people around and so many questions being asked, and you just get tired of it.
Okay. Now I was looking because I don't want to and it's something that just stuck out to me. Somebody said, and this is relevant when someone says, how you doing, right? Somebody said, how you doing, how you think I'm doing. Some questions you don't even know what to ask. So sometimes it's like, I think it's free to give a person, if you want to talk to me, you talk to me. But
Yeah.
sometimes you don't know what to say. And if you've lost somebody, you pretty much think you know how they're doing. So is that a question that you find to be offensive when someone asks you how
Very
you
much.
first
Very
happened
much
to you?
so. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And why is
And I
that?
think it's because people just don't know. They don't, I don't think, I think they don't know what to say. I think they don't know. They want you to know or feel like they care, but they don't necessarily know what to say. Um, I had people that actually just showed up and they didn't say anything. They just showed up, and that was good.
So do you find that grief is because I heard someone say to me, they put it in the inbox and said that she felt like she was grieving her son and her daughter because she lost both of them. And she said that she felt like she had to grieve them for the rest of their lives because that meant how much she loved them. What do you think about that?
I think some people do feel like that, but I know for me, um, I may have thought that before, but I don't feel like that now. I remember going to my therapist. And so I believe in therapy. We went, prior to marriage. Once Lonnie transitioned, I went, and a lot of people don't believe in it. And I'll say this: my mom never knew I went because she's older, and they never believed in that. But I'll never forget. And I think I knew this, but I'll never forget when the therapist told me. She said, "Ann, if you don't let them die, you can't live." And when
Mm,
she said that, it's like I knew that, but when she said it, I don't know if it made me feel free,
mhm,
or kind of gave me a sense of, I don't know that I want to say permission, but it did give me a sense of freedom because I knew exactly what she meant, and I knew it was true. You will be stuck in your tracks, and I feel like I've grown a lot, um, but that's because of I knew I needed to. I knew that my husband would never want me to not live my life ever. He would never want me to be held back for no reason at all. So that helped me a lot.
And
And
it's
if I'm,
okay.
Oh,
I'm sorry,
so
if I may jump in, and I think you said something that was very powerful. And again, I want to thank you for sharing your stories. We discussed beyond the breaking point, rebuilding after loss. You said something that was very powerful. Giving yourself permission. A lot of time that's hard with us up in age because we've been taught these things either from a cultural standpoint, a spiritual standpoint. We've been taught these things that's supposed to work, but really what they do, they cause us to downplay real solutions, right? So I love what
Yes,
you said. Not only do I love therapy, but I can love somebody if I don't use it properly, then it's counterproductive. And so I
mm,
think that's very important as an adult that sometimes we got to give ourselves permission to say, hey, that was wrong teaching, no knock or whatever. But yeah, if I keep trying to keep him to live when he's not here, then I am no longer living. And then
correct.
for you to reflect on him and say, well, that's not what he wanted for me. I think sometimes we do have to give ourselves permission because in those moments of emotions, we've been kind of taught to just do whatever, right? Like we can just lay it down. That sounds good or whatever, kind of like the how you doing statement. But
Yes,
I think that was very powerful in saying, hey, I had to give myself permission to even think this way, but I had to trade out that old way of thinking.
yes.
And it's kind of ironic because the questions that I was going to ask you followed in order. You gave us the kind of like the blueprint. You gave it in order how he transitioned. But I want to flip it
Mhm.
and tell us about your son. How
So
your son.
my oldest son, Casey, Kevin Clark Jr., he transitioned in, and I'm sorry, let me go back to my husband, and I didn't mention this. Um, so 6 weeks prior to my husband transitioning, a really, really close friend of mine sent me a text message, right? To this day, I still have it. And I looked, and I keep things because I have to be able to refer back sometimes for it to make sense to me. Um, and so I remember getting a text message, I want to say April 23rd. And she said, hey, God put it on my heart to send you this message, um, saying that God is going to reveal to you some strength that you never knew you had. And when you don't, something to the point of, I know the end of it was saying trust the process. So when she first sent me that, I was like, what is she talking about? I'm like, oh, okay. And I just said, oh, okay, thanks. Because sometimes some things don't make sense until they do.
Mm-hmm.
And so she sent me that. And when my husband transitioned, I went and grabbed my phone. I was like, what?
Mm.
I, I'm also a believer of, again, that nothing happens. There are no coincidences. And sometimes we don't pay attention to certain things, or, it bypasses us. So my oldest son, Kevin Clark Jr., was 30 when he transitioned. Uh, he passed in a car accident. And when I tell you that, that could have taken me out as a mother. So when it happened, I want to say it was it was March the 24th, 2022. I remember getting a phone call, and it was police department. Um, no, 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 no. The police knocked on my door, and I'm thinking, I thought it was lightning because I saw different lights, and I was like, so they was walking up to the door. I was like, what did they come here for? Like, I don't have no police activity. What's going on? So I'm thinking, like, they must have the wrong house, right? And so they walked up and said, hey, do you know Kevin Clark? He was involved in a car accident. And so my son's name is common. And so there were at least like three. So throughout school, it was always, which Kevin Clark. And so when they came and they told me, well, he was involved in a car accident and blah, blah, blah. So at the time, they didn't tell me he transitioned. They just told me to contact the state police department. So I called his girlfriend at the time, and I told her, and so I had her on one phone, and I had them on the other phone. And he's like, well, we're gonna come down. And I was like, well, what are you coming down for? I'm like, what hospital is he in? He was like, "So the officers didn't tell you what happened?" I said, yeah, they told me he was in a car accident. I was like, so where is he? He said, ma'am, he didn't make it. And I was like, what? What do you mean? When I tell you, I almost couldn't breathe. I had to like just get myself together. Because I'm thinking like, and I'm still holding out hope. Like, no offense. I still was holding out hope that it wasn't their Kevin Clark. It wasn't my Kevin Clark. Not Not that I wanted it to be somebody else. I just didn't want it to be my Kevin Clark. So then I'm thinking, oh my God. So I come and wake my son up, my other son, and my mother and I, we stay next door to each other. And I went over her house, and I'm thinking like, oh my God. So I go wake them up. My son run out the house. I'm thinking like, oh my God. And when I tell you, I still was hoping it wasn't him. Like, I don't know. I still was hoping that it was not him.
Yeah.
You know,
Um, You go ahead.
As we continue to discuss this topic beyond the breaking point, I notice as you're telling your story, and even though this is after the fact, like that breaking point was real and actual personal. And as I was thinking, when you're talking about the transition of your husband and your son, if you could just give the audience, if you feel comfortable, the parallel from, you said your son, that's the one that could have taken you out, right?
Yeah.
Where it's easy to say, okay, that's a mother's love, right? When we have plenty of mothers that love their son, but just in your personal experience, could you give us kind of like some examples of what made that love in your perspective, like in your own story? Like, what was that fondest memory? You know, I think you said he was 30 years old. Like,
Mhm.
what was some of the things that you remember that forged that love to that point, other than him just say, oh, that's your son, of course you're supposed to feel that way?
Oh, he was my oldest son was raw, and when I tell you, he was the one that stayed in trouble, right? He was the person that Joan. He was in sports, like he was just all around good dude. And so even his relationship with his grandmother, my mom, their relationship was so dope, right? And so they called each other certain names, and I don't. My they would be like, "That's my ninja." Okay, you know what I mean.
Mhm,
He said,
mhm,
"Hey, Granny, that's my ninja," and my mom was like, "What's up? What's up, ninja?" And just the relationship that he had with them, and not just them with people. He was just a people person.
mhm,
Um, he was a big brother. He was a protector. He was the neatest. He was so neat, right?
mhm,
Um, but I also believe, now let's go back to this. Only because I can, this is just my belief, right? And I believe everyone has to do what helps them provide peace. And
Mhm.
so for me, my son, he transitioned at 30, but I also know my son got into some trouble at 18, right?
mhm,
And so he got into some trouble, and I was really, really concerned about him. Like, seriously. And I was so nervous thinking that something would happen to him. But I look back and I'm thinking, God, at 18 I was worried. Um, but God allowed me 12 more years, right? Because
Mhm.
honestly,
mhm,
I didn't think my son was gonna make it to 30.
Mhm.
I never I never based on the trouble that he got into, right? So
right.
I'm still grateful to God that it didn't happen at 18.
Right.
It
Mhm,
happened at 30. So he was able to experience
Mhm.
life, right? So
mhm.
not life as an old man, but
Yeah.
life, he still matured. He had an opportunity to mature past those trouble times. And so
Mhm,
I'm grateful. I'm grateful because he could have been gone at 18. I so I counted all wins. When I look back, yeah, I'm sad he's gone, but it was some growth in those 12 years. It was growth from 18 to 30. He experienced life. He developed a better relationship with family. Um, my cousin is a pastor, and she actually told me she talked to him. My son transitioned on a Thursday night. They talked Sunday evening about some different things, and that helped provide me with peace,
Mhm.
Um, and so the peace that you have for you is for you. It's not for others. It's not for other people to have to understand.
That's
Well,
it.
it's not, because they wouldn't understand because they didn't walk that walk with you, right?
Right.
Hmm.
So I'm grateful. I am so grateful for the 30 years I had with my son. What is amazing to me is I had a job that I worked at for 28 years. Now my son transitioned March 24th of 22. March of 21, I remember texting my supervisor saying I am mentally exhausted, right? And I walked it back. So March of 21, I'm mentally exhausted, working all these crazy hours, people didn't come to work, yada yada yada. Transferred to another store. 3 months later, I'm out of here. I resigned. People thought I lost my mind.
Mm.
Mm.
Walking away from a job of 28 years, they're like, what? I understood what I wanted, right?
Mm.
So if you look at it, so that was in June of 21. October of 21, I had my first grief event. And I have a page. I created a page to kind of help myself release. And as people were losing people or people wanted, I kind of invited them in, and it was just kind of my own little therapy for myself while others were being a part of it.
Mhm.
So October of 21 was my first event, physical event in person. It was like 9 people there, right? Out of the 9 people, I think only one person was not a family member.
Mm.
Okay. So October we lost a family member, November, December. So let's do the math on this. June,
Mhm.
my son transitioned in March. That's 9 months. Okay.
Mhm.
Had I not left my job that was demanding, I feel like the decision I made allowed me more time with my son and with my family. And
Absolutely.
they asked me, so what are you gonna do? Hey, what you gonna do for money? Blah blah blah. I was like, what do you mean what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna figure it out.
Amen.
What you got some money? I said, well, how you gonna make it? I said, I'm gonna make it. Well, what do you plan on doing? I said, spending more time with my family. And I'm so grateful that I stood on that. I'm so grateful. So that helped provide me with peace because God was preparing me and I didn't even know it.
Mm.
Through
And
preparing me, I was preparing our family. Didn't even know it. And
and then
and it's just amazing. And so even in grief, I'm grateful. I am grateful for some things of how it happened. I'm grateful that I can look back and say, hey, we started a conversation about grief prior to grief. We
Mm.
didn't wait for grief, okay?
Mhm.
We started it prior to.
Yes.
And so I'm grateful. Like I'm thankful. And I just feel like that I was being led. And I feel like I'm grateful that I listened. That helped my kids. That was the biggest thing. Like I was so nervous about my other kids. Just nervous. Just really, really nervous. Um, my son transitioned. That is, I tell people, my body ached for 30 straight days. Do you hear me? I
Mm.
kid you not. Every day for 30 days, my body was in pain. I'm thinking, like, God, when I'm missing my son, it's not as bad. And I think it's not as bad because I'm learning how to cope better. I still miss him, but I know some things that I need to do to help me with that. But losing a child, that can take you out. That can that can take you out. I'm talking about you have to fight for your life. You have to fight, like literally find some things that's going to help provide you with peace, even if it's for an hour. Um, y- yeah.
So and I want to thank you again for opening up and being candid on this episode of Beyond the Breaking Point, Rebuilding After a Loss. It's something you said. I want to you inspire people to open up and tell their story. Believe it or not, I just want to kind of get some comments in here based on the inspiration of you being transparent. We have Queen Coleman who said, "I had two daughters and a husband to die. My daughter's death was harder on me than their father's death. The first one died unexpectedly, and I think it says 2018, and the second one died 6 months after her dad. And so, Ruth, if I may, I just have one more question. As we talk about the theme of this podcast, what would you say would be your singular breaking point, whether that's for your husband or your son, versus your triumph or your breakthrough? Like, what was that one, uh, the one that got you? And I think you kind of talked about it with your son. But what was that one that like moment that you just feel like there is no, I don't have anything else. Like I have to just kind of sit in this moment and deal with it. And then what was that moment of that relief or that breakthrough from that moment, if that makes sense?
So I just knew I had to find the strength, right? So I had to build it though.
Mm,
Um, building it for me, I had to build my mental strength so my body would follow. And so I would follow trends on Facebook. I did this, I think at the time they did like a 60-day challenge where they walked. Um, Even when I didn't feel like it, I did it, you know. Um, just certain things that would just kind of give me a focus, right? Because I needed something to keep my mind. And doing that, it helped me. It helped me a lot. I picked one focus, and it could have been something different after that walk. Yeah, but I had to choose something to focus on. Otherwise, I probably would have been all over the place. But I
mm,
do want to mention, and I didn't mention this with the transition of my husband. I want to say about a year and a half after my husband transitioned, I drank so heavy. Oh God, it was so bad. It was to the point where the next day I would wake up sometimes and look out the window and wonder like, did I really drive home? Like bad.
mm,
Um, People didn't know it, and I think people didn't know it because my husband was a DJ, so we were out. So it wasn't uncommon for me to be out, right? And then because I wasn't a mean drunk or ignorant, I was kind of a happy drunk. Okay. So like my behavior didn't really display ignorance, but the way I was drinking, it was bad.
yeah.
And I'm kind of glad that I went through that with my husband, because I don't know how that would have been had I went through that with my son. That might have been the point that would have taken me out. So I'm thankful that I had to get that out of my system prior to my son transitioning, because that was a different kind of hurt. So I don't know if I would have drank then. I don't know what my outcome would have been.
Mm.
And do you feel like either death, do you feel like that has changed who you are and how you are as a person? Do you think it's changed who you are? Because sometimes
Oh,
death can change us. So do you think it's changed who you are and how you see people? Because death changed people around you. So do you think it has changed who you are and how you relate to people?
it definitely has. And I think it has in the sense of I remember moments that I felt lost. And even if I didn't look lost, I don't think people long as you smiling and you okay, you got your hair done, you dressed up nice, you matching, you got your little lip gloss. Long as you look the part, people can't really tell. Um, and I think so many times we try to look the part, right?
Mhm.
I remember my mama telling me one day I was supposed to go somewhere and I didn't go. She's like, "You okay?" I'm like, "Yes, ma'am, I'm okay." You know. And then day two, I didn't go somewhere, and she called me. She's like, "I'm coming over there. I got to see you. I got to lay eyes on you." Things like that. Yeah, that helped motivate me because I'm like, okay, now mama coming over here. You better act like you got a little sense because otherwise she gonna stay over.
But Ann, why do you think that's something? I don't. And again, I don't know if that's cultural or whatever. But why do you think we're taught to be okay when we're not okay? Like even though we're not, and I think you alluded to earlier. Sometimes we have an expectation of people to, it's
Yeah,
time to go back to work. Hey, you got like, why do we? Why? In just your opinion, like, why do you think we?
I
Why
think it is cultural.
people being okay instead of dealing with it, right? Like it's almost like we force people to kind of.
We do. You know what? I feel like that because I feel like I was taught that, and I feel like the relationship I had with my mom, and things that I felt I was taught, and now in the voice that I am, in the space that I am, I can say, hey, mama, this may or may not have worked for you,
How?
but what you think about this? And
Mm,
so I have a way with my mom that she listens to me.
mm-hmm,
She tells people, "Oh, you should go to therapy." I said, "Says the lady that told me, are you
mm-hmm,
really going to therapy?" I said, "So you telling people they should go to therapy?" I'm just saying, Miss
mm-hmm.
Ann, it looked like it helped you. And then she say, "Well, I told such and such that you have grief events and they should come." I said, "What?" And so I just think that everyone has a gift and a voice, and I feel like this is part of my gift because my behavior, my voice, I know how to communicate, and it's like that wasn't working, mama. Or older family members, and then they see you, they see your process, they see your progress, and it's like, oh wow, they'll give in just a little bit. Okay, well, okay, it's like they may not eat a whole piece of cake, but they might just give them a little piece. Let them try to taste it. And
mm-hmm.
so I think that's where I'm at. I think in my family, I am the oldest girl. And so I think there has always been an expectation on me, um, kind of forced on me. And so at this age that I'm at now, if there is an expectation, well, it is an expectation, but so I want to do things a little different, right? So I want to be that person that shows our family, or at least say, hey, let's talk about it. Or hey, what do you think about this? Because so many times things go undone because we just never talked about it. We never had a conversation.
Mm,
Nobody ever disagreed to agree. Even my mom, I was like, okay, mom, can you just listen? Like, and not disrespectfully though, right? So I think that's part of my gift, being able to have a conversation. Not saying that I'm right, just being able to start a conversation because everything starts from a conversation.
yeah, I think the power is just normalizing it. I mean, I hope our audience didn't miss that to influence mama.
Yeah,
Like that's pretty impressive, by just normalizing. Like we're taught, sometimes we think it's this big thing, and we got to, and sometimes just normalizing, like you talked about, the starting the grieving, posting and things of that sort, and just making it a part of your circle. I just love the fact how it impacted. We talked about in an older episode how sometimes those old thought processes get passed down and no one questions it,
they
whatnot.
do.
to where
They
now
do.
mama's like, hey, you go to counsel. I think that's a very powerful sentiment.
And I think it's important for, my Aunt Queen, and, speaking of her loss, and she was speaking about it. And I think it's a difference, losing a spouse versus losing your children. And but
Mm,
and
Yes.
losing a parent, it's all different stages to me. And I also think that grief is not a destination, it's a
Yes.
process, it's a
mhm,
journey.
Yes.
And I think I was talking to my mother-in-law one time, and she reminded me that your body knows it sometimes, whether it's Christmas, whether it's their birthdays, your body lets you know because it'll act out. And you
mm,
wonder, like, why am I getting sad? And if you're normally not a depressed person, but your body will tell you, be like, oh, it's their birthday, or is this, your body actually lets you know. And so sometimes you can be fine today, and then all of a sudden it's like you're grieving them, and it's like, why is this happening? So grief is natural. It doesn't mean like, and some people like, aren't you over that? That's the worst thing you can say to somebody.
It
But I
is.
think it's your own journey, and you get through it, but grief is something that we all have to deal with.
It is.
And I used to always think like I never wanted to get close to somebody because I never wanted to have to deal with losing them. But that's a part of life.
It
But I
is.
never wanted to get close to someone. And Queen, that's my auntie, but my uncle just died. I never wanted to get close to
Mhm.
him because I never wanted to experience that. And it's somebody close to me, really close to me now. I never wanted to get close to her because I never wanted to experience losing her. I lost my mom, but I never wanted to get close to her. But it's a part of that. So I enjoy her now. I give her flowers now because if something was to happen to her, I know that I'm loving on her in this moment now. And that's what I wanted to say to everyone. Like, you love that person now,
yeah.
because I don't want to give them their flowers when it's too late. And that's the whole thing about. And Ann taught me that, like one of her grief sessions, love on them now. And the
Yeah.
beautiful thing is that she could talk about her son, or she could talk about her husband, is because I know that I loved on him. And sometimes you don't know this, but the people that have died in your life, if you think about it, they have prepared you, because
Yes.
before they die or transition, you'll have that conversation. And sometimes my mother had a conversation with me before she died. And I get mad sometimes, like, no, she didn't prepare me, because she told me, go in the room and get my insurance papers. I didn't catch that. And I said, I don't feel like walking in there. She said, go get them, please. She was preparing me because a month later she died. She just wanted me to know where they was. And I think
Yeah.
like I could rewind the clock. I wouldn't have walked in there and got them, because I'm thinking like I
Mm-hmm.
could slow the clock down.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
everybody who died in your life, sometimes they prepare you. It's like God prepared them. I'm come back and get you. But if you think about that, they've let you know. So I think that they had the conversation with you, but we wasn't ready for that. We wasn't ready. And
Right.
sometimes that's the selfish part of us.
And Ruth, I think you and Ann, you all alluded to it, and I want to say this specifically for our audience. If you actually study, if you ever been to counseling for grief, grief is a form of love. So to actually deny that grief is as if you don't love that person. And that's the struggle, right? Like you said, those real emotions, those real memories, to try to deny that, to like what Ann alluded to try to appear normal, whatever. Think about it. There's never a day you don't love your loved one, or you don't love your husband, you don't love your wife, you don't love your child, right? And so that grief is usually a form of love after the fact of the tragedy, right? How do I live and show this type of love at that point in time? And so I think it's very important, to your point, is that a lot of times that preparation is there. It's just because they're physically there in our mind. We don't walk around thinking life after without that person, right? Like, we don't think like that because we're taught that's negative thinking. But I love what Ann said in her story, how a simple text was sent to her, or a conversation, hey, go get the insurance papers. That was preparation enough, even if after the fact you guys was able to reflect on it. And hey, Ani, I want to make sure I say hey, Auntie, to Queen Coleman. She said she got a statement. She says, "My husband and I mourn before his transition. He had lung cancer. Definitely, our condolences go out." to your loss. And she said, yes, David and I grieved him while he was going through his cancer. I think what Ruth alluded to. And so, you guys, if you're just now joining us, beyond the breaking point, rebuilding after loss, right? We always talk about loss, and when we see it from a distance, we do those cliche things. I think we talked about, hey, how you doing? How you feeling? My condolences. But I think tonight, Anne has put a face on this thing. Someone up close and personal. Not one time, my goodness. Um, two times. Hello and good evening. Hey, what's up, Juwan? Glad you could join us. And so as we talk about beyond the breaking point, we first have to identify that breaking point. And let me tell you right now, I appreciate that candid transparency. You talking about the alcoholism and functioning in it, right?
Yes. Yeah.
A lot of times, again, like like Ruth said, like we're human, right? It's not pretty, right? But owning that and recognizing that, and God giving you the healing, so that unfortunately, when your son passed away, hey, I know not to do that again. Some people duplicate that or they go deeper, and so I think that was a huge nugget in your story as we talk about rebuilding after the loss. And I couldn't agree to what what Ruth said more. It's a process. It's not a destination. Even as you sit here and tell your story right now, I think anybody with any type of feelings. I was talking to Diana behind stage, and she was like, "I'm just caught up in the story." And you're like, "You're right." I've been trying to catch myself not to just sit here and just remember that we're talking to people, but it is taken aback when you hear people share their transparent truths. And here it is with you not experiencing it one time, but even a child, right? But recognizing that there is a transition from that breaking point, but also in that rebuilding process. And as Ruth said, that it doesn't have to be an end point, because that's the way it is for someone else, So I think that was a powerful sentiment. I'll turn it back over to Dana and Ruth.
And sometimes I think too, in death, we don't sometimes look at it, and sometimes you ask the question, but in some instances, I think sometimes God removed people so that someone else can live. And what I mean by that is, when my mother died, I, you know, my sister wasn't doing so well. And I didn't understand this until someone told me this, that God had to remove the stumbling block so that your sister can live. And when he removed my mom, my sister was 11, and my sister was going through some things that if he wouldn't remove my mother, she wouldn't have been able to prosper. And at the time, me and my ex-husband, we took my sister in, and she was able to prosper. She was able to live and go further. So at the time, I was angry with God because, like, why did you remove my mother? But it was shown to me she had to move out the way so that your sister can live. And only a mother will want to pay the ultimate sacrifice, take me so that my child can live, because that's what God did for us. You know what I mean? I will sacrifice me so that we can live. And so now that I see that, and it's like I understand that, but she had to go so that she could live. And I appreciate that now. I can understand it now, but that's how grief was. I grieved my mother, but now I just miss her. But I understand it, and the pain it eased. I still miss her, but it had eased, and that's why sometimes I think with grief, you learn to get through it, but it get better by and by. You still miss that person, but it get better.
Yeah. So. And I have one question for your. You talked about some of the conversations you and Lonnie had, which I think was beautiful. But on this podcast, we always talk about conversation between men and women, right? And then today's side is always the negative, right? What we don't talk. I would love just one or two. What were some of the conversations you think you and your husband had, just as man and woman? And I think you alluded to it, but help prepare you to hold on to those memories long after, what were some of those things, or just, anything that you would like to share just as a man and woman, period, that you that was shared with you, that was shared between you two, that you feel that helps you kind of extend his love moving forward?
Now I don't have specific conversations, but I want to say the way he lived his life, you know, um, he was always present in the moment. Um, just the energy. I can't remember a certain conversation, and this just made me think of what me and Ruth talked about yesterday. One thing I have noticed as far as me, and I don't know that people talk about this a lot, and I've noticed it after my son passed, was um, memory loss.
Mm.
So I think the trauma has affected my memory to a certain extent, right? And so I had to learn how to kind of keep up with things or kind of plan things that help me to move forward. And I've learned what works for me is sometimes I set alarms, and I'll know what those alarms are for. Um, I put certain events in my calendar. And then one of the biggest things that has helped me is to not take on too much, because I've learned that since those transitions, I can't do too much. Like, it wears me out. And what I mean by that is, at one point I was going to all the parties, I was trying to be present, but once those people transitioned, my capacity, I can't do that no more. So for me to be able to function, I can only commit to maybe one event, just learning how to take better care of myself so I still can be present, if that makes sense. Um, I can't take on a whole lot. Like my memory sometimes, and I know it's a direct result of trauma, right? And I don't think I don't think people realize that. I don't think they do.
Yeah, what you're speaking on is called griever's fog or trauma fog. That's loss of memory because your brain is trying to fight the hurt and pain of that loss, and so that spiritual trouble thing. So that's a real thing. To your point, trauma fog or grievous fog is the clinical terminology of it. And so, man, thank you for just being sharing your transparency. Thank you for normalizing how counseling it's still helping you in your transition, and then more importantly, and like thank you for your transparency in even those areas that the world would laugh at us, judges and things of that sort. For you to
Yeah.
come on a podcast and just be open and candid with that, because trust me, look, we all have our issues, right? There's no right formally, and even if it is, that doesn't say that we following it. So I can't thank you enough for sharing this story beyond the breaking point, rebuilding after loss. Definitely, I can see that you're a woman of faith, and so I can only imagine how much that has championed you through it, and probably even he's still keeping his hand around you to be able to tell your story to other people. That's pretty much what we wanted, not necessarily. I think you and Ruth talked about this when you guys were going over the questions. This is not to get in people's business. This is to edify people. Because I promise you, someone out there
Yeah.
that's watching this that doesn't have the courage, and it's not a knock to them, but they doesn't have the strength. They're not there in their
Right.
process to open up and even understand, even go into that first counseling. And so, hopefully, with the power and strength and obedience that you discussed here, it gives someone a chance to maybe one day tell their story. Um,
Can I add something in? Um,
sure.
I was telling Ruth that even even during the times that I didn't know what I wanted, when I encountered something that I didn't, that led me closer to what I wanted, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
And so we try to figure out all these different things, and we still, going through grief, and I even challenge myself. I would take myself out to dinner. I would try different things. Like, you will never be the same, right? There's no way possible. But get to know who you are now and who you are becoming. So
That's right.
that's the biggest thing.
That's
Mm.
right. That's right.
Girl, all right, you gonna have me start running, and
That's right.
hey, we some believers on here now, and I almost shot it right out now.
That's
But
right. That's the
I'm
whole
gonna say
word.
that for the people. I'm just like, okay, now I got on my track shoes up under this thing. I'm like, all right, now that'll preach. But no, man. As our sister Dan, I think she's having some technical difficulties. You guys, thank you for bearing in there with us. Um, I want to also thank Ruth for finding this gym and working with her and working with her schedule and allowing her the opportunity to be a guest, on this Tuesday evening. Man, I have been edified myself. And so I thank you for that connection. We definitely have to have you on again. And I can't thank you enough. I don't think people realize in this day and age of social media and entertainment how hard it is for some to tell their transparent truth. You're not reading the script, not
Yeah.
reading words from someone else and edit it and, hey, say this, don't say that. And this is what the punchline is, but just to come on, man, before a screen of strangers, quite frankly, because myself and Diana don't know you, and just tell you a transparent truth, man, and be a blessing to other people. Trust me, as Ruth said, in this season of, it's around the holiday time, and those real memories are there. Definitely, dealing with it with my father, it has edified even me. And so I just thank you for your obedience. I can't thank you enough. And I hope and pray um, Annie, Queen Coleman. I think you said that's your Annie, Ruth.
Yes.
And if I'm not mistaken, thank you so much for sharing your transparency. Again, man, in this day and age of social media where everything is trying to impress people, I think there's power in just standing on your truth. So thank you for chiming in. We're going to try to close it down here from now. I know I'm full. If you would like to have ongoing conversations, we'll check in with Ann to see if that's something. And Ann, before we get out of here, could you tell us where to find I think you said you have a group that for Greek. Could you kind of give the audience a little bit of where they could find it if they wanted to join?
So I would actually have to invite them, but the name of it is Picking Up the Pieces in Peace. And for me, I chose that title because I felt like my world had shattered, right? And so how do I piece it back together? But most importantly, I had to do it in peace. Like it was already chaos with the transitions, right? So it had to be like I was in a quiet room. I
Mm-hmm.
had to have peace in order for me to kind of navigate through whatever my next was. And so, yeah.
Okay. Well, look, definitely reach out to her. You can go to either one of our pages. She's both our friends. If you just want more information on that, I think it's so important to normalize that and not wait until you're in the space of. I'm pretty sure that's something that you've learned. So I'm glad that God called you to, not only deal with yours, but reach out to those and normalize that conversation. You guys, this has been another edition of Unfiltered Kings and the Queen podcast. I'm gonna say this publicly: the devil is a lie. I'm hoping that Diana, everything is fine on her end, but this was going to be an even more powerful conversation. But the word does say where two or more gather, so is he, right? And so I definitely think he's here. And so even with that interruption, God still gets the glory with this. I think Juwan has a conversation. He says, thank you guys. This has helped me with some homework I need to do since the passing of my brother when I was younger. Um, he just trying to keep. I just trying to keep myself to not think about it as much. Listening, listen to some things that helped you all lets me know it will get better. The only way out is the way through it.
Yes.
Will get better. Yes,
Right.
it will. Yes, it will.
Absolutely right. I've had the privilege of counseling people through grief, and it's one of those things. Like if you don't remember anything, there's a lot of great points here, but like Ruth said, it is a transition. No one can tell you. Don't let nobody force you. No job or what have you. No, I'm not saying everybody can walk away from their job, and that's Ann's testimony, but own your space, right? And whatever you need, whatever type of help and assistance that you need, and own your truth. right? I say again, like Ann said, it could be something that we could be doing that could be counterproductive to that, but own all of that, right? Take all that and get the help that you actually need, right? Even if there's distance in time 10 years ago. My father passed away in 2019, and trust me, in 2025, it feels like it was yesterday, you know. And so just own your truth, own your space. Juwan, I'm glad that this space was able to help. And again, Ann, I thank you for being such a godsend.
Thank
And
you for the opportunity.
no problem at all. Thank you so much. Look, you guys, if you guys want to continue support conversations like this, please follow us on all social media outlets. And then also out there in the podcast world, are excited. We have done a lot of work to be in the space wherever you find your favorite podcast, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, YouTube. We are working on our YouTube issues. Our IT is taking a look into that. So my deepest apologies to those who have been having issues with that. We're hoping to have that up and running throughout the week. But if you haven't done so already, please go in those spaces, man. It really allows us to continue to do great work like this, to bring on guests like this. And it really shows that we're committed to this together, right? We don't have all the answers. Right. So we enjoy you guys' comments and things of that sort. And so if you haven't done so already, not only just follow us on social media, that's a great thumbs up, things of that sort, but go out there into those other worlds and other spaces and follow us. With that being said and done, beyond the breaking point, rebranding after loss, and we cannot thank you enough. Ruth, thank you for your time. I think we got Diana back. We already said that the devil is a lie, Dana. We definitely thank you for being able to join us tonight. And thank you, ladies, for navigating this conversation. Right. I know I had some questions and things in there, but I think oftentimes we as men, there's something to be said to hear our queens express their emotions for us. You know, not only while we're here, but even afterwards. It doesn't always have to be this negative connotation. And so I think I personally enjoyed that tip of it. With that being said and done, you guys, we're going to get out of here. Again, if you have any other questions, inbox us on any of our social media groups. They're all safe spaces. They are protected and confidential. But until then, we'll talk to you guys later on another episode. You guys take care, okay?
Thank you.
Good night.